Right. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the American Association of Political Consultants, I am so excited to invite you to, or welcome you to our virtual seminar, Innovative Voter Outreach Tools Campaigns Should Implement Today for the 2026 Elections, sponsored by Telephone Town Hall Meeting. I'm Kelly Foley from the AAPC team, and I'll be your facilitator today. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be available in our member archive. If you're not yet a member and would like to join, please visit theaapc.org for more details. Today's seminar will run for approximately 40 minutes and the panel will take questions throughout the program. So be sure to submit your questions through the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will address as many as we can during the session. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce today's panel, starting with Shaun Thompson, President at Tele-Town Hall. Shaun, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm Shaun Thompson, president of Tele-Town Hall. And just a quick background, I've been with Tele-Town Hall for about 20 years now, developing innovative technologies for voter outreach. And Curt, do you want to do a brief introduction as well?
Yes, and I'm with Telephone Town Hall Meeting, and I've been doing this for 15 years, and I had blonde hair when I started. So back to you, Shaun.
Thanks, Curt. Yeah, so today we're really going to be focused on innovative phone and mobile technologies to be used actually in the off election year this fall in the next upcoming months, but particularly for the 2026 election. So we'll be focusing on the things that you should be doing now for 2026. So things like name recognition, building relationships with voters, fundraising, and voter ID. We'll also touch a little bit on GOTV, but that'll be a little bit of a shorter session. So with that, let me set the landscape. Everybody knows that more Americans are getting rid of their landline telephones and switching over to mobile-only households. But I think what's shocking is just how much time the average American spends on their mobile device every day. It's 5.3 hours for average American. That's a 14% increase from 2023. Gen Zers are spending 6.5 hours on their phone each day. Millennials are spending 5.5 hours, but even baby boomers are spending 4.3 hours on their mobile device each day. So really, this applies to all different demographics. So what are the main challenges in terms of reaching voters on their mobile devices? I think the number one thing that we want to talk about with our tools today is building trust. So your outreach really has to be trustworthy. You need to be trying to build trust with voters instead of using voters as really a transaction, either for fundraising purposes or to win their vote. The other thing we're going to focus on is compliance. This is a big one. So with voice calls, we're going to be talking about how these tools apply to the TCPA. And with texting, we'll talk about how they apply to 10DLC. We're also going to be talking about tools that are highly scalable, because if you're not reaching enough voters to achieve your desired result, you're going to come up short. And so all the tools we're going to be talking about today are extremely scalable. Next, we're going to be talking about penetration in terms of being able to reach voters with all of the other channels that are being used. So we'll be talking about mobile channels, but then we'll also be talking about how you kind of cut through the noise of oversaturation of email, texting, political digital ads, et cetera. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about timeliness. This is a really big one because in the last election cycle with peer-to-peer texting, there were literally millions of GOTV texts that weren't delivered until after election day. And so those GOTV messages didn't get out. But the tools that we'll be talking about today are timely, and your message will get out before election day. So, Curt, is there anything that you want to add before we dive into building name recognition and voter relationships?
Yeah, to give you an idea how important mobile phones are right now, we were asking to get a list that we're using for a senator, U.S. senator, the other day for a telephone town hall. We're going to be talking about a lot more about than just telephone town halls before. But the list we got was loaded with landlines. And so I had my team go back to the vendor and say, we can't have this. We got to have cell phones first, landlines second if we don't have a mobile phone, because people just don't pick up those landlines anymore. They're really just concentrating on mobile phones. I mean, at my own home, I pick up my cell phone. I still have a landline because of where I live in the mountains in Colorado, just to have, but landlines are pretty well passé, and so really mobile phones are pretty much the only way to go. Back at you, Shaun.
Thanks, Curt. Yeah, so the first new tool that we're going to be talking about is called Mobile Live Invite. We also sometimes refer to it as Mobile Waiting Room. And this tool actually allows us to dial cell phones for telephone town halls. Previously, we could only dial landlines, and that's because we were playing a pre-recorded message inviting people to the Tele-Town hall. Again, we talked about compliance and the TCPA before, so you can only send a pre-recorded message to landlines without that opt-in consent. However, we're actually using a live operator to deliver that welcome message to mobiles with this mobile live invite feature. And what this is doing in practice is essentially doubling the universe that you're able to reach out to with this interactive telephone town hall solution. And then that enables some of the other mobile features that we're going to talk about today, including synchronized text to action, sending texts to voters at the very end of the teletown hall when they're most engaged and likely to take action. So what we do in practice is we take your list of voters for your district, we divide it into landlines, which still receive the pre-recorded welcome message, and then mobiles, which now receive the live operator message to be compliant. And then once people join the Teletown Hall event, they're all joined into the same conference call. Why are telephone town halls so effective at building name recognition and voter relationships? I mean, I think telephone town halls are the premier tool for reaching people at scale. The average teletown hall, because we're sending these rapid outbound invitation calls, thousands per minute, we're able to generate 250 times on average as many participants as an inbound only phone conference or web conference like a Zoom or a Teams meeting. And the other thing that's really important is not just scalability, but the fact that the average voter is actually, spending about 10 minutes on average in the teletown hall. The only time that you can really get 10 minutes of a voter's time is if you're door knocking, you're there in person. So, you're getting 10 minutes of the average voter's time. And we did a study where 80% of the participants in a teletown hall actually emotionally remembered the telephone town hall as a personal call from the candidate themselves. So that's really important. This doesn't appear to be a surrogate that's reaching out to them. It's the candidate themselves. So that effort, again, is critical. And then the other thing that's really important to building name recognition and building relationships is this two-way back and forth dialogue, which telephone town halls are one of the only platforms that can do this. Other short forms of communication, it's really difficult to explain, complex issues or more nuanced issues. But with the back and forth dialogue, this long form of communication, it's easier to explain the more complex issues in your platform. And then lastly, this idea of live Q&A with your voters is again critical to building trust with them. And when voters hear from their neighbors, from their peers, the questions and the issues that are most important to them, that also helps them develop their own opinions about the candidate. Is there anything else that you want to add about telephone town halls and building name recognition and relationships?
Yes, we are the only combined company that can do both call landlines and mobiles at the same time. We have a competitor out there that has to do it in two separate calls. The second thing is that by calling many more mobile phones than we used to before over landlines, we found that the average listener is listening longer than they used to when we used to just call landlines. I don't know why, but it's statistically there. The third and final thing is that the mobile numbers that we're getting nowadays when we're reaching out to voters seem to be much more valid than we were calling landlines before. Back at you, Shaun.
Yeah, Curt, to your last point, we're seeing much higher connection rates with mobile phones. We're typically seeing, 75%, sometimes 80%, 90%, depending on list quality. But if you compare that to landline lists, we were seeing maybe 65, 70% before. So you're connecting with more voters and they're staying on longer, both extremely positive developments for telephone town halls. The next piece of the election life cycle that we really want to focus on is fundraising again. And this is where we have some new developments with the tools that we're going to be talking about today. So very quickly, I'm going to be talking about live direct to voicemail, Gabby graphic, and then synchronized text to donate during telephone town halls. And I'm going to turn it over to Curt, who's going to be talking about some of our case studies and strategies for boosting fundraising using these tools. So very quickly, live direct to voicemail. You can think of it as a compliant version of ringless voicemail. Ringless voicemail used to be a tool that we'd send out with a pre-recorded message from the candidate. Long story short, the FCC said that, well, that is a call. A ringless voicemail is a call. If you're sending a pre-recorded message, you can only do it with opt-in consent. So what we decided to do is use a live operator so that we're delivering live voice, but at scale. So now, we dial a list of, let's say, 100,000 mobile phone numbers. And let's say 75% of that list, we're going directly to voicemail. There are no live answers. And on that voicemail, we're leaving your message from a live operator. It could be the candidate themselves, because this is very not time intensive. It's very cost effective. It's very time efficient. Basically, a candidate could get through a list of tens of thousands of voters in just a matter of minutes, or it could be a surrogate or a volunteer from the campaign. And so it's also much more cost effective than professional live one-to-one calls, because again, you're dialing or you're getting your live message out to thousands of voters per minute. So we talked about the scalability of it, the cost effectiveness of it. The other desirable aspects of a live direct to voicemail or live ringless voicemail, if you will, are that more of your audience receives the entire message because it does go to voicemail, and voters can replay important details, maybe about an upcoming event and the location or time for it. It's also something that's more positively received by voters than, let's say, a robocall or even text messages. And that's because voters aren't receiving multiple rings of their phone. Essentially the message is coming through, and it does intrigue people when they receive a voicemail, but their phone hasn't rung multiple times. So more people are listening to that message. And then again, we talked about it being very time efficient. All you need is a list of mobile phone numbers, a script, and a caller ID phone number. Again, we help you register for Stir Shaken for compliance purposes. And you don't need to register for 10DLC. Obviously, we're not sending text messages here. So it's something that you can set up same day if you have all of those items. And ultimately, the candidate can spend 10 minutes on the phone and still deliver tens of thousands of live messages instead of, dialing voters one at a time over the course of multiple days. Curt, do you want to add anything about the advantages of live direct to voicemail?
Yeah, a couple of things. Originally, this was developed for get out the vote efforts in the last election cycle. And it actually, because we did 105,000 of them, pushed somebody over the finish line. It was measurable of pushing people to say, hey, don't forget to come and vote. Don't forget to come and vote. The messages basically are 15 seconds long. That's about all the system really allows, just the way it's set up. They're not a persuasion. They're a call to action type thing. Use other in using these, if you're tying it into something else, it's to persuade them to do something. Are we ready to talk about that beta test I'm doing right now, Shaun, or are we going to wait until later?
We're going to talk about it in just one moment. I want to just touch on two other things. So
Okay.
number one, if we're comparing this to peer-to-peer texting, where you're basically getting, one alert, that text message. The nice thing about voicemails today with the developments on mobile phones, you're obviously getting that audio message, but you're also getting visual voicemail, which is a transcription of the voicemail message, and hyperlinks or phone numbers in the transcribed voicemail message are clickable. You also get this live voicemail alert where you're basically seeing a real-time transcription on your lock screen. And there's an ability to actually accept and move to the live call if you want to hear the live voice from the candidate. And then lastly, you're actually getting now a new feature called voicemail to text. So your voicemail actually appears as a text message itself. So again, you're getting 4 alerts in one with voicemail as opposed to just one from peer-to-peer texts. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is another new solution called Gabby Graphic, um, which is basically a playable graphic. It could be a picture, a logo, or some sort of custom artwork. You can see our example on the right here. It's supposed to be very relatable and casual. What we found was we did some A/B testing with Gabby Graphic with this still image that then also has 60 minutes, or excuse me, 60 seconds of narration from the candidate. So it has an audio file attached to the still image, but because it's more casual and relatable, we actually saw a better response than we did with including HD video in your double MMS text message. And I think the reason for that is, the high production HD video is just not as relatable to voters. There's a place for that, and that's probably TV. But you're better off trying to relate to your voters with this Gabby graphic. And not only does it grab your audience's attention because of the image, but something that's very important with the number of texts that people are getting and the number of spam messages out there is, again, legitimizing the source. The image does that, but more importantly, the personal voice from the candidate themselves legitimizes the source, and that's critical, of course, to fundraising. So with that, now that we've explained these two tools, Live Direct to Voicemail and Gabby Graphic, Curt can talk about how these tools are being used to boost fundraising.
So your direct mail piece goes out for fundraising. It's still done. It seems to be picking back up. It's almost like the old days are back. The direct mail piece goes out. It goes out in standard fashion, bulk mail if you wish. And about a week later, what happens is you send out what we just called a ringless voicemail saying, please read the direct mail piece that just got and have some sort of call to action. It's whatever the case may be. The next day, you send out a Gabby after that video Gabby graphic that has it's a call to action, but you have a little bit more time. Instead of 15 seconds, you have 30 seconds for a message, or as Shaun said, as much as 60. I'm more of a proponent to keep it shorter. But anyway, you send that out, and again, it says, please read the direct mail piece and all that. I don't think you actually ask for money in either appeal. You just say why they got the direct mail pieces to save whatever you're trying to save the election, save the world, whatever the case may be. When we did these in the past, we got a 17.5% average contribution increase over and above what had been done in the past. We have a new beta test out right now. We're doing an A/B test, and we will have even more statistics if you reach back to us in about 2 weeks after all the numbers are in, and we'll find out how much more we got. We'll get an increase. It's just a matter of how much in the A/B test we're doing. A/B means we did let's say 100 direct mail pieces, and 25 of them got a phone call, and I mean the ringless voicemail, as well as the Gabby graphic, and then the rest of them did not. We'll be able to evaluate two things. What's the average donation goes up within the ones that we reached out to, and what does it compare against to the people who didn't get anything at all? It's going to increase more because you're giving two more touches to the whole overall situation. But again, in neither situation, you're really trying to sell that they donate money. You're trying to say, hey, read the stuff, read the piece of mail that came in. In direct mail, about 95% of the people that get direct mail respond back with it back in the mail. But if you're smart with your client, you can tag all the records that came out with the cell phones they were provided and see who supplied back what. One more benefit that came out of a recent beta test that we did is when we did the ringless voicemail, we sent out to, in this case, we really sent out to 57,000 of them. And out of those 57,000, we found out that they had about 8,000 bad phone numbers. So we only sent the Gabby texts out to the 47, 48,000, 49,000 people that we knew had correct phone numbers. So that meant the client got to go back and clean up their existing database with better data, knowing that these phone numbers were wrong. In the texting world, you can't necessarily tell which phone numbers are good, which ones are not. In the ringless voicemail world, you can. And so an added benefit out of this whole thing is you get to clean up your list at the same time with better phone numbers. So when you just go directly text them later, you're actually texting to real people with real phone numbers. Back to you, Shaun.
Yeah, excellent points, Curt. So, again, it's using these two tools, the ringless voicemail and the Gabby graphic. It's not just a reminder to turn in your direct mail piece, but it's also really legitimizing the mail piece itself is coming from the candidate because of the personal voice. Um, but yeah, as Curt said, I mean, ultimately, this case study that we're running right now, I think over 200,000 mail pieces were sent
Right.
out, and as Curt said, it was about 57,000 that we were sending the ringless voicemail and the Gabby graphic to. So we've got a really good sample size, and we're doing A/B testing, and we're looking forward to sharing the results with everybody shortly. The other fundraising tool that we really want to talk about that you should be using right now is synchronized text to donate during a telephone town hall. So with a telephone town hall, again, there's the scalability of it that you're talking to thousands, tens of thousands of donors at the same time. And because of the authenticity of the telephone town hall, the back and forth dialogue, you're priming them all to give at the very end of the Tele-Town hall when you send a synchronized text message to them when they're most engaged and likely to contribute. And we've had success conducting these fundraising Tele-Town halls and accomplishing three real things: identifying more small level donors, and then graduating donors from small level donors to mid-level donors, and then also reactivating lapsed donors. So those are the three areas where we've had the most success in this text to donate during a telephone town hall. Curt, anything you want to add to that before we move on to voter ID? Okay. All right. So the other thing that you should be doing now, and again, to just kind of recap, we talked about building relationships, building name recognition. We just talked about fundraising, but you should be also IDing voters right now to identify not just potential donors, volunteers for your campaign, but supporters and undecided voters that you're going to be using some of these tools to persuade them down the line. The two new tools that we're going to be talking about with IDing more voters are a new tool we haven't talked about today, live voice broadcast with transfer to a survey or to a voter ID. And then the other thing we talked about, text to action for telephone town halls, but we can actually do a synchronized text to a survey or a short voter ID at the very end of the teletown hall to get more complete IDs. So live voice broadcast is actually quite similar to live direct to voicemail, except with live direct to voicemail, you're only going to voicemail. With live voice broadcast, you're going to live answers and to voicemails. You can think of it as a compliant auto call to mobiles, so they don't need to opt in, just like live direct to voicemail, because again, we're using live voice, but it's still very scalable. We're dialing, thousands of voters per minute. And then there is that patch capability where you can ask voters to press a keystroke on their telephone keypad to transfer to a call center or an IVR automated survey to do voter ID. The IVR part people ask me about, this is just your classic press one if you're voting on election day, press one for candidate, A, press two for candidate B. But the reason why we're able to go into that is because they press the keystroke from the live voice component. They're actually opting into that automated survey. So it's really cost efficient to use live voice broadcast to get through that larger universe and have people, it's almost like a screening process, and then they can be transferred to the live call center or the automated voter ID survey. The other voter ID solution that we're going to talk about that's new, again, is the telephone town hall text to survey. So of course, in the classic telephone town hall event, we can do real-time polls during the teletown hall, basically a five answer multiple choice question. Press one if you plan to support my candidacy on election day. Press two if you're undecided. Press three if you're not going to support me, you're going to support another candidate. And you get the detailed data for all of those people participating in the poll, name, address, phone number, et cetera, and how they responded. But the new aspect of this, again, is sending the synchronized text to survey at the very end of the teletown hall. And that can go to everybody that participated in your teletown hall, typically 20 to 30% of the universe that you're reaching out to, which is very powerful. No other tool is going to give you 20 to 30% engagement. And so if that person wasn't on when you asked that voter ID survey question, that real-time poll, they're still going to get the text message and they can still respond, post event. So this is all about getting more complete voter IDs from using these two tools, and you can use them in concert. Kurt, anything you want to add about these voter ID solutions or why you should be doing this now? I think you're on mute.
Anyway, sorry about that. Anyway,
Yep.
what I was going to say is that you have with some of these live calls you're doing and stuff like that, you can just use it. You can even keep it simpler and drive people to events. Let's say you've got a event coming up and you want to call these people up and you live call their cell phones and say, "Hey, so and so is going to be at a physical rally. We hope you can attend. If you're planning on attending, please press one on your phone." And I'm giving you the very simple version of this. We've done this before. And so what happens is all those people that press one probably are going to be loyal supporters of your candidate. And it makes them more likely that they're going to show up to the dance because they almost feel somewhat obligated if they press one or something like that. You can get much more complex than that, but that's a simple version of using it. And then while we're at it, I want to go back to and answer somebody's question because I should have done it in the last before we went over to this. Are there any particular donor segments or demographics where mobile outreach works especially well or not as well? I'll answer it first, and Shaun, you answer it second. Yeah, I can tell you if you're using your own existing phone list of mobile phone numbers, you're going to have a lot better results. If you're store buying it, it's not going to be as good. That's one simple answer. Shaun, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, you do want to start with those those three categories that we talked about before. So, I think if you're doing a fundraising teletown hall with text to donate, you're not going to call all new prospects, for your first teletown hall. You probably want to use a healthy mix of those three categories. So yes, one of those would be prospects. A second category would be low-level donors that you're trying to graduate. I think on the teletown halls, the fundraising teletown halls that we've done before, we had a number of people that gave $50 previously, 40 or $50, and then they gave $250 during the teletown halls that we did for presidential candidates or congressional candidates. So, and then the third category that we talked about are lapsed donors that had not given, in some number of years. And, I think it's important to know that circumstances change. And obviously, if you're working with a donor list that's been shared, every candidate, is different, and it also depends on the opponent. So I would recommend using a combination of those three categories with your fundraising teletown hall. But that's an excellent question. And Curt, just to emphasize what you were talking about. So yeah, not only can you ask people if they want to attend a vote and infer, support from that, but I do want to say that all of these tools are excellent for driving people to events, not just live direct to voicemail and live voice broadcasts, but also these synchronized texts. And as Curt said, if somebody does RSVP, we found obviously they feel compelled to to attend the event because they've already said they were going. Lastly, we're going to jump over to GOTV, and again, of course, this is something that you're probably not going to be working on until later in 2026. Although if you have off election year elections, we're right around the corner. We're talking about October deploying some of these tools. But again, a lot of the success that we've seen from live direct to voicemail, live voice broadcast has been during the GOTV period, and we'll talk about some of those successes. And of course, you can use the synchronized text during the telephone town hall for GOTV purposes. So, starting with live direct to voicemail and live voice broadcast, I think again one of the amazing things that we've seen, and we've seen it this cycle as well, is state level officials, so state house or state senate candidates. Maybe they're calling 10, 20,000 supporters that they're trying to mobilize, for election day. And they can sit down and call that entire universe and deliver a personal message in 7 minutes, 10 minutes of their time. So, yeah, you could use a surrogate, but if the candidate themselves can make that personal call, it just makes sense. We also talked about how personal voice really today stands out from the noise of too many text messages, emails, or digital ads. So, obviously a number of years ago, maybe a decade ago, people were getting too many robocalls, but now it's the opposite. People are getting too many political texts. And so personal voice, again, is a kind of an aberration from the noise that stands out. We talked about the ease of setting these up. So again, this can be something that's set up a few days before election day. Again, you only need a mobile list, you need a script, and you need a telephone number for the outgoing caller ID. And again, we talked about the timeliness of this tool. So the day that you're making these live calls, these messages are going out and being left on people's voicemail, or they're getting the live message. So you're avoiding, some of the complications of trying to send a text message a few days before election day and risking, the inherent latency of texting where your message isn't received until after election day. Curt, anything you want to add about live voice broadcast or live direct to voicemail for GOTV?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. And then the last thing, again, we wanted to talk about was using these telephone town hall synchronized text to GOTV. So telephone town halls themselves are a really effective GOTV tool. It's almost like a virtual rally. It's the next best thing to participating in an in-person rally for the candidate. Again, we talked about 80% of voters actually remembering the telephone town hall as a personal call from the candidate themselves. And just like live voice broadcast and live direct to voicemail, that personal voice stands out from from the noise of too many political texts, emails, and digital ads. So we have used in the last election cycle a number of telephone town halls for issue campaigns or candidates. They sent these synchronized text to donate and text to GOTV. And we saw significant increases in mail-in ballots submitted. You can say, okay, put your mail-in ballot or fill out your mail-in ballot and put it on your counter to send in the next day, or don't forget to vote the next day. So, Curt, do you want to talk about some of the telephone town halls? I know you had a congressional candidate that was doing telephone town halls and also doing live direct to voicemail last cycle for GOTV
Um,
purposes.
the telephone town halls are great if you go in with the mission in the first place that you're going to get a lot accomplished. Not only are you going to get out your points and what you want to talk about, but also pushing people to events, IDing people, the whole thing. And so what we try to do with clients is we try to I don't know, get them ready to have a really good call and try to cover a lot of bases to get a lot out of that call than just saying, hey, we're the great candidate for this, this, and this. You want to get all that other information out too. So that's very important. As far as the ringless voicemail, the last go around, like I said, it pushed us over the top in an election we were doing in my state, and it was a difference maker in a close election. And in this upcoming cycle that we have coming up right now, I happen to be sitting on the Jersey Shore right now. This race could be close out here. It was the last time for governor 4 years ago. And Yee, who does a better job, a more innovative job about getting out the vote, might win the election. Certainly could have made a difference the last time around, but making sure people are actually voting and getting the job done. Apathy is one of your biggest enemies. You think you've got your people in line, your numbers look good, your polls look good, but apathy, they're not getting the job done. They're not going and voting. They're not dropping off their ballots. They're not going to the voting booth if they got an absentee, especially, or if it's mail ballot, whatever the case may be, they're not getting the job done. These tools reaching to cell phones get that job done. They give it that little extra push one way or the other. They give it a difference between being behind by 2,500 on election night to the last ballots that got counted and pushing over the top and winning by 2,500. That's all I have to say about that, said Forrest Gump. Go ahead, Shaun.
Thanks, Curt. Yeah, the only other thing that I want to bring up is, again, these tools aren't mutually exclusive. You should be using an omni-channel approach, and you should be using texting. You should be using live voice, for live direct to voicemail, and also doing telephone town halls. These all have, specific strengths, but I think, what Curt has conveyed today is that the telephone town hall really can be used for every aspect, of the election cycle, whether it be courting your voters, fundraising, voter ID, and then getting out the vote. So there's a lot of different, results that these tools can accomplish, and so we recommend using them in concert. Curt, do we have any other questions from participants?
Yeah, and this one comes up all the time. Can you explain the scalability of D2V, if a candidate is leaving voicemails, how can they reach thousands with a 15-second voicemail? And how is it TCPA compliant? Go ahead, Shaun. I know you have the answer for this.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason why you're able to reach thousands of voters in a matter of minutes if you're the candidate themselves is because we are dialing literally hundreds of telephone numbers per second, and the second that if it's ringless voicemail, the voicemail picks up, we are actually connecting it to the live voice, and the person is basically repeating, as Curt said, let's say a 15-second GOTV script. So they're repeating it. And we make sure that everybody gets one full reading of that GOTV script. So you could literally have, let's say, 2,000 people that are listening to that script at once. And that's how, the scalability works. So maybe the candidate reads the script, for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, on repeat. But again, everybody's getting one full reading of the message. Why is it compliant? Our system's not an auto dialer. Most people are probably familiar with the Supreme Court Facebook decision, which basically broadened the definition it narrowed the definition of an
Mhm.
auto dialer to one that generates random or sequential telephone numbers. So our system is not an auto dialer. Again, most of the texting platforms out there are not auto dialers. But the second thing that the TCPA doesn't allow you to do is send pre-recorded message to a cell phone without consent. And so by using live voice, we're able to get around that.
And so
Yeah.
what happens here, if your candidate can't say that same 15-second message over and over and over, and that's what it takes, in a lot of cases, I've used a surrogate and said calling behalf of and saying that same message because it's only 15 seconds long. We've done a lot of that one way or the other too. So if you don't think your candidate's up to saying that same message over and over and over, we have people that can do it for you and stuff like that. It seems to work out just fine in saying it in third-party tech context, and that's the other way it goes about it. But it is all legal. Back to you,
Yep.
Shaun.
Yeah. And the other aspect of that is, we can also send out, multilingual messaging. So, let's say if you want to get your personal voice out there in Spanish, we have, professional staffers that can deliver your message bilingually to different parts of your universe. So that's important too. Um, Talking about the scalability and maybe having a surrogate deliver your message. So we actually had two U.S. Senate campaigns in 2024 that did live direct to voicemail to universes of over a million constituents. So, the surrogate was probably delivering the message for maybe 30 minutes, repeating that script for maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. You can also, pause basically the software or pause the dialing and have one person read the script for 15 minutes and then another person read it for the second 15-minute interval. So it's very flexible, but again, very scalable.
The last question that came in is what role do the technologies play in increasing turnout, specifically among hard to reach groups? Well, a lot of the hard to reach groups are more likely to be people that have cell phones. So I think these technologies play quite well with hard to reach groups because the only way to reach them a lot of times is because they have mobile phone numbers. What do you think, Shaun?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, especially with all the polling we do, we find that, a fair number of these difficult to reach people, not only do they have cells, but some number of them have burner phones or temporary mobile phones. And so ultimately, we can work with our strategic data partners to obtain those burner phone numbers. And then again, you're going to need to, use some sort of mobile communication tool to be able to reach them on election day. They're not also terribly, if somebody's got a burner phone, right? It's not a new iPhone or it's not a new Android phone. So, maybe they can't get HD video on their device, but if you can send them personal voice, you're going to be able to reach them in a personal way.
That's right. Now, how do people get in touch with us, Shaun?
Okay, so here's our contact information below. And the great thing about all these tools that we've talked about today is that we can give you a real quick, personal demo, answer any questions that you have. Our email addresses and our phone numbers are below. Feel free to call us or send us any questions that you have. And we really appreciate everybody staying on today and all those excellent questions. Thank you so much for participating. Hopefully you learned something, and we're also looking forward to sharing the results of some of our new fundraising efforts in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, for this entire fall, we'll be doing beta testing on some large groups and stuff like that. And we'll have more and more information on how we're doing one way or the other. This is the time to do the fundraising. So there you go. And we'll probably have some results after the November elections and how we impacted any given elections that are coming up this fall in December. But if you'd like a demo, please reach back to either one of us. Doesn't matter. We'll probably try to reach out to you too to see if you have any questions or want to have a demo, or in some cases perhaps even participate in a beta test, whatever the case may be. Kelly, to you.
Thank you. Yes, please feel free to go ahead and take a screenshot here of Shaun and Curt's contact info. But that does bring us to the end of today's seminar. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our presenters for their exceptional contributions. And special thanks again to Telephone Town Hall Meeting for sponsoring this program and keeping it free for all of you. Today's program will be available for playback in the AAPC webinar archive, so keep an eye on your inbox for an email with that recording link. And before you go, a quick survey will pop up on your screen at the close of this webinar. We'd appreciate it if you could take a moment to share your feedback on today's program. Also, don't miss our upcoming events, including the 2025 Southwest Regional Conference, September 15th and 16th in Austin, Texas. For more details and registration, visit our website or email us at info@theaapc.org. Thank you once again to our presenters and attendees. This program is copyright 2025 by the AAPC. And that concludes today's webinar. See you all next time. Thank you.